Okay, so we're going to start working on creating this drawing in celebration of the Lunar New Year. And so to get started, I'm just going to go into my gallery and I'm going to hit the plus sign to open up a new canvas. I'm going to choose the screen size. You want to make sure that your iPad is oriented to a horizontal position, and then your screen, your canvas will open up oriented the correct way. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up this band down from the bottom of my iPad, and I'm going to hold my finger over my web browser, and I'm going to pull it over to the left, hold it there and drop it. And so now I have a split screen in between my browser and Procreate. And you see there's a little tab right here, little bar. I'm going to grab that with my finger and scoot it over so that I have, whoops, it didn't take, come on. So I have more room on my Procreate side than I do on my browser. And in my browser window, I'm going to type in Pixabay and hit go, and I'm going to bring up pixabay.com, and in their search window I'm going to type in Chinese New Year and hit search. And I'm going to see what pictures come up on Pixabay for the Chinese New Year, and this is the one that I want to use. So I'm going to tap on it, and I actually just want to take a screenshot, and it shows bigger right there. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to grab the power button and the top volume button and press them simultaneously to take a screenshot. And then I'm going to come out of Procreate and go into my photos, and I'm going to find that photo that I just took. I'm going to tap on edit, and then I'm going to tap the crop tool. I'm going to grab these little corners and drag them over to just isolate this one image. I like doing it this way rather than downloading it from Pixabay, just because it makes it a little easier to import into Procreate, and just a little less fuss to deal with from the downloading. This is a little simpler for me. So I'm going to say done, and so this is the image that I have now. So I'm going to go out of that, go back into Procreate, and I'm going to grab this little slider here and just slide it all the way over to the left to get rid of my browser window. So now I want to go over to my color wheel. I want to import the colors from that photo. So I tapped on my color picker, and I'm going to go down here to palettes, tap on that, and I'm going to tap on this plus sign in the top right. I'm going to say create new palette, new from photos is the one I want, okay? So I tap on that, and then I'm going to select the photo, and you can see it imports all of my colors right here. I'm going to use my finger and I'm going to tap on the palette from image, and I'm going to write Chinese New Year. Say done. And then I'm going to go over here to the disc, and you can see that the Chinese New Year palette is already loaded up for me there. Okay, so I'm going to tap out of that. Then I'm going to come over here to my wrench tool, tap that, tap add. And I want to tap on insert a photo, but I'm going to pull it over to the left and bring up this insert a private photo. So what this does is it means that you can pull in a reference photo and it will be on your canvas, but when you do a video playback of your drawing, where you know how your drawing developed, this photo won't show in there. So I'm going to tap on Insert a Private Photo. I'm going to select our Chinese New Year photo, and then I'm going to resize it. Actually, I think what I'm going to do, instead of grabbing the nodes there, I'm going to just say Fit to Canvas. Okay, so that just automatically makes it line up with whatever. Like you can see there's still some white left over on the canvas on the top and the bottom, but it snapped to fit on the right and the left. So the aspect ratio is a little off from what our canvas is, but this is good. So I'm going to tap on this arrow to deselect. I'm going to go into my layers panel. I'm going to tap the N on my inserted image, and I'm going to lower the opacity down to about 43. Then I'm going to tap on the plus sign to insert a new layer. Okay, so I'm going to tap on this layer and I'm going to say rename, and we'll call this layer line art. Okay, tap out of that. Then we're going to go into, make sure you're on your line art layer. We're going to go into our brush library, and I'm going to go into the inking group and choose the studio pen. Tap out of that, go to my color picker, and I'm going to double tap down at the bottom to select black. Okay, now I want to check the size of my pen. Let's see, that's a little big. I'm going to bring it down just a little bit more. No, that's too small. Maybe just a little bigger. Okay, so I have my pen at about a 4%. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to use my fingers to zoom in. And again, you want to make sure that you're on your line art layer, not on your inserted image, okay? This is very important. So I'm on the right layer, and I'm zoomed in, and I'm just going to take my pen. That's still a little big. I want to go a little bit smaller. I'm going to do a size 3%. Okay, and so now I'm just going to start tracing the objects that I see in here, and see how I have like a little gap right there? I want to make sure that that is closed off, because I'm going to use this line art as a reference for when I drop colors in. So you want to make sure that everything is closed off so that your colors don't leak out of your shapes. And so just move the canvas around to whatever works for you. And go ahead and trace all of the major lines in the photo. And you can use the snap shaping if you want. And see here, there's a little gap right there, so I need to make sure that extends out to the edge of the canvas, or it will leak out later. Okay, and I just want to get the main shapes. I'm not going to do all of the beams of the wood. See, I use the snap thing there to make that curve a little smoother. I don't want to do that part. I'm just going to do the top of this shape. We'll draw the fringe in freehand later. So I want to get this bar coming across this way, and I'll snap that into shape. If you make a mistake, just double tap or tap with 2 fingers to undo it, and try again. Bring this bar all the way across and snap it into shape. I'm not happy with that. Try that again. then bringing it from here. And then there's a line that comes this way. And this should really extend out there. And you can go in with your eraser and let me see, I think my eraser, nope, that's right. So you can go in with your eraser. I have my eraser set to the studio pen as well. And remember, to do that, you can just hold down your pencil on your eraser and that will change it to the current pen that you're using on your brush. I'm going to erase that. Okay. Then I'm going to draw this shape in here. Oops. Close off the top. And I'm going to draw in this lantern now. Use that snap to shape to get that angle or the curve correct. And see, when you hold your pencil down, you can resize it a little bit. I'm not happy with that one though. I'm going to redo that. That's better. And then get this in here. You can see I still have some gaps. And erase that little bit. Bring this over and this over. And I need to close this, but that got a little long. Close that. Here. Erase that. Okay, and then I'm going to get these poles here. And zoom in and make sure these lines all touch to the lantern line. And also extend out off the screen. Bring this line down. And over here. And again, zoom in and connect these spots here. Okay, and I want to get this lantern in here too. So I'm just going to erase. I want to put the lantern in front of this pole. So I'm going to erase where I've drawn that in there. And then draw an arc and another arc. Go in and clean this up a little. And then come down here. Okay, and I should probably put this guy in here. Oh, and I need to remember this has to extend down past where my image ends. Otherwise, it has to go all the way to the edge of the canvas. Otherwise, the color will leak out when I go to color drop. So I'm just going to look at this, see if everything looks good. Oh, see, I missed that one. So make sure I can see all the way to the edge of the canvas and extend this all the way down and off the canvas. Okay, and I'm not worried about this right here because I'm going to end up filling in the background layer with black. So that will just blend in. I'm not stressed about it. Okay, so when you're done, I'm going to turn off the visibility of my reference image right now. So when you're done, it should look something like this. Okay. Now I still want to be able to see my reference photo, but I don't want it on my canvas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the wrench tool. I'm going to go to canvas. I'm going to turn on reference. That brings up this little menu. So right now it's set to canvas and it's showing what's on my canvas. So this can be really good if you want to zoom in really tight on a space and like work on it, but then still have your overall canvas, you know, like the view of your canvas where it's not zoomed in available, so that you can see how what you're doing is affecting the overall picture. That's not what we need right now. We want to bring in image. So I tapped on image. I'm going to say import image. Come on. That brings up my camera roll. So here's the photo for our reference photo, and now it's imported it and it's in this this little window, and I can move the window around. I can resize it if I want to, and so I can keep it out of my way or put it where I need it to be so that I can work from it, but not have it interfere with what I'm doing. Okay. Now we're going to go into our layers panel, and I'm going to tap on the inserted image that's turned off, this reference image that we use for line drawing. I'm going to tap on that, then I'm going to hit the plus sign to add a new layer underneath our line art layer. And I'm going to tap on my line art layer and tap on it again to bring this up, and I'm going to tap on reference. So now layer 3 will use the line art layer as a reference for when I drop color into it. I want to make sure to do the lanterns and the beams on different layers. So I'm going to do the beams right now. So I'm going to tap on here, tap again, and I'm going to say rename, and tap on the text to bring up my keyboard, and I'm going to name this layer beams. And then return, so I'm done with that. So make sure that you're on your beams layer. I'm going to tap out of that and tap on your color wheel. And so here we have our color palette that we got from this photo. And so looking at this photo, I can see that the beams are mostly, I think there's some highlights and some shadows, but the main color is this kind of like deep red. So I think maybe this color right here will work well for me to start with. We'll add more shading onto the beams as we continue working, but for now I think starting with that nice dark red will work. So I'm going to tap out of my color picker, and now I'm going to put my pencil on the color wheel. You don't want it to linger there too long. If you do, it will change to your previous color. Okay, so I'm going to show you that again. If I hold it on here too long, see how it just turned to black? So if that happens, just hold it on there again. But when you want to grab your color and drag it, you just put your pencil on it and drag, and then drop it into your space. And so I undid it so I can show you the next step. So I drop it, and then I want to come up here and say continue filling. Okay, so it's got color drop on now, so I can just tap into each space I want to fill with this color. So all of my beams are getting filled in with this red, and I can zoom around. I can move around and zoom in and out as I need to. Up, I can see right here I have a gap, so watch what happens when I tap in here. So see how it bleeds out of that gap? We don't want that. Let me see if I can adjust it. Oops. Nope. See if I can adjust it. Nope. So I'm going to double tap to get rid of that. I'm going to go back into my layers panel, go to my line art layer, go into my colors, double tap to get that black, and then come in here and fix that gap. Then go back to my layers panel, go to the beams layer, go to my color picker, pick that red. And remember, I also could have done it by holding my pencil down on that color to switch it back and forth to the colors that I was just using. So now I can go in here and drop, and it doesn't bleed out. Okay, I also want to get in, there are a couple spaces where it wasn't able to fill, so I'm going to go in and get those. So I don't have these white spots showing. That white spot I want to leave because that's the space in between. There's a couple right here. And right there. Just in some of those tight corners, it looks like it struggled. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Now I'm going to go into my layers panel, and I'm going to add a new layer above the beams and tap on it, rename, and tap in the text, and I'm going to name this one Lanterns. Return. Okay, so make sure you're on your Lanterns layer, and because it's below your line art layer, it will also use your line art as a reference. All right, so I'm going to go into my color picker, and I'm going to pick a color for my lanterns. And ignoring the yellow glow part, which we'll do later, the overall color of the lanterns seems to be like a nice orange. I think I'm going to pick this orange right here. And again, I'm going to grab my color, drop it in there, say continue filling, and drop the orange into those three lanterns. But you notice this lantern back here is yellow. So I'm going to go into my color picker. I'm going to pick a yellow. I think I'm going to pick this medium yellow right here. And then I'm going to grab it. Oops, didn't catch it there. Come on. Oh, I still have my color drop on. So I can just tap in there and it drops it in. Okay, and then I also want to do these little things on the bottom. I'm going to hold my pencil down to bring that red back up, and I'm going to use that for this color. Whoops, my color drop is now off. So I'm going to put it there, say continue filling, and I'm going to tap on my color picker. I'm going to pick a darker red. I think I'll do this one, and I'm going to tap in the little bottoms of my lanterns here to make that, I don't know what that's called, bottom of the lantern. Okay, so I can tap off of the color drop to turn that off. I'm going to go back into my layers panel, and I'm going to select my beams layer, and I'm going to tap on it again to bring up my side menu here, and I'm going to turn on alpha lock. And what Alpha Lock does is it makes it so any ink or any color that you put down over or on your canvas, it will only show up where there's already color down on that layer, okay? So I can take, as long as I'm on the beams layer and the Alpha Lock is on, I can take this red and I can color over, let me make my brush a little bit bigger, I can color over this lantern, and you see how it's affecting the beam behind the lantern, but nothing's happening to the lantern itself because it's on a separate layer, okay? So that's how Alpha Lock works. It doesn't go on to any of the white, it's only on the things that are on the color that's already on that layer. So I'm going to I'm going to tap with 2 fingers to undo all of that. So now I'm going to go into the brush library, and I'm going to go under airbrushing, and I'm going to choose the medium brush. Tap out of that, and let's see, let me check my size on my brush. I'm going to go down to maybe a 3%, and I'm going to lower my opacity to about 70%. And what I want to do is add some lights and darks to my beams to make them look a little more three-dimensional. So I'm going to go into my color picker and look at my palette here. And let's do the darks first. And I think I'm going to use this darkest brown right here. Okay. Looking at my reference photo, I'm looking to see where the shadows are in the reference. So you think about, so the lantern is emitting light, so it's lighting up the underside of these poles right here and here. So the shadow is going to be on the top of the poles rather than the bottom because the light is coming from underneath, okay? So we can use that. I'm going to zoom in here. And so that brush size is too big for this little section, so I'm going to bring it down to, let's see, I think a 1. And I'm just going to put a little bit of the brown on the top edge of this pole. Doesn't have to be perfectly neat. We're gonna do a lot to it from here, so don't stress about it too much. I'm gonna increase my brush size a little bit here and put some brown down on the top of that rail. And just, oops, I need to go back down. So I'm just gonna put a little bit here between these 2 rails, and same thing here. And then going to bring some of the brown along the top of this top rail. As well as this one. And now as I come over here, now this rail is below this lantern, so there's more light on it on the top here. And so it kind of changes out. And the shadow is on the bottom of the rail now because the light's coming down this way. And there's also some shadow here because there's not as much light going on. All right, and now as we come over here, it's going to be darker along the top because the light's coming up and lighting it from underneath. I can bring my reference photo over so I can see a little better. And this is going to be darker here. And coming out this way. I suspect, like off this, off the picture, if the picture were extended, there's probably another lantern over here because I can see light coming in this way. But I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to act like that's not there and just shade this in with the brown. Okay, and so here on this one, the shadows will be on this side, but then this is going to be lit up pretty well here. And we'll have shadow down here. And if you want to be really ambitious, you could throw in a bottom ledge or edge, sorry, down along this beam to give it a little bit of depth. I'm not going to worry about it too much. To me, it looks like it, other than right here, you can kind of see that's what all this is, but it fades a little bit into the background, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. I'm going to bring my brush size up a little though. Make that a little easier. And bring in some shadows down on the back of this beam. Now you notice if I pick up my pencil and I put another mark down over a mark that's already on there, it makes it a lot darker. But if I rub my pencil back and forth over a mark without picking it up, it stays the same. So that's just one of the properties of this brush. You'll find like the watercolor brushes, the airbrushes, there are a fair number of them that are additive where if you pick up your pencil and then you put it down again and make another mark, it makes it darker. Okay, and so then we're going to come down here to this one, and it's being lit from there, so that's pretty good like that. All right, so, oh, and we need to do this guy over here. Okay, so that's pretty good. Now we're going to go in and choose a lighter color. I want to fix that up. Whoops, I need to go to a smaller brush and just kind of get rid of that little light spot there. So now we're going to choose our lighter color, and in looking at the beams, I'm going to bring this over. And looking at the beams, the lighter color looks like it's almost, like maybe I'll choose this orange, okay? So now I'm just going to do the same thing, but where it's lighter, I'm going to put in this lighter color, all right? And that's pretty stark. That's a pretty big difference. Don't worry about it. We're going to fix that, okay? So just go ahead and change your brush size as needed. And you can leave some of the mid-tone, the brown, the dark red that was already there. You can leave that in some spots. And make this brush size a little smaller here. I'm just bringing it along the bars, or the poles. Remember, alpha lock is on, so you can go off the edge. You don't have to worry about staying within the lines, right? It's doing it for you. Bring some light tones down this way. Okay, and up here. Make my brush a little bigger there. Okay, and then down along this edge. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. And now I'm going to go over here to my blending tool, and I'm going to hold my pencil down until it says smudge with the current brush, okay? So I'm going to adjust the size down to like a 2%. And then I'm just going to come in here and move the color around a little bit just to soften up the edges and blend things together. You can see how that's already starting to make it look a little bit more three-dimensional, right? And just moving around the canvas, smudging all of these beams and poles. And notice that you can pull the lighter color into the darker color by the direction of your pencil, or vice versa, just all depending on which color you start with and where you move it to. To do this beam, I'm going to increase my brush size a little bit. Oops. You need to be careful. See how I did that and it smudged over onto this other pole? That wasn't really what I wanted it to do. So for around there, I'm going to bring the brush size back down and be a little bit more careful in my smudging so that it stays on the plank and not onto the pole. And then I can bring my brush size back up. And bring it up a little bit more. Okay, that's looking pretty good. So now what I'm going to go and do is I'm going to pick a much lighter color. When I look at some of these highlights on my reference photo, you can see that there are some pretty sharp highlights in a couple places. So I'm going to go into my color picker and I'm going to pick like maybe this medium yellow. I'm going to go into my brush library and go back to inking with that studio pen. I'm going to bring the size down to maybe we'll try 7%. I'm going to zoom in and I'm just going to put in, I think I want a little bit smaller. Let's try 5%. I'm going to just put in a few little lines to make some highlights here. Okay. And then I'm going to switch over to an orange, try this light orange here, and I'm going to do the same thing on some of the more subtle highlights. Okay, then I'm going to go back in with my smudge tool, bring that size down, be a little bit softer or smaller than that. Bring it down to maybe a 2 and just lightly soften those strokes. You don't want them completely smudged out, but you do want to soften them just a little bit. That'll help them look a little more realistic. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Let's soften this guy up a little bit. I'm going to go back into my layers panel and I'm going to select the background layer and we're going to change the color to black. So double tap down at the bottom and then tap on your canvas and you can see like already that that looks pretty good. We're still on the beams. I'm double checking that. I want to smudge a little bit more here. Just with it on the black background, it kind of looks a little differently. So I just want to make sure everything is looking the way I want it. Once I've changed the color up some. I'll change that background color. Okay, and now you could go back in with some more darks and adjust this to how you want it. At this point though, I'm going to move on and I'm going to go into my layers panel, and I'm going to tap on my lanterns layer, and I'm going to add a new layer by hitting the plus sign, and I'm going to I'm going to tap on the layer 5 now. I'm going to tap on it again to bring up this menu. I'm going to turn on clipping mask, okay? So this is very similar to Alpha Lock. You can see once the clipping mask is on, there's this little arrow pointing down to the layer below. And it works the same way as Alpha Lock as far as I won't be able to put any marks down on this layer if there's not color already down on the layer beneath it. With Alpha Lock, it works by working on the same layer, that you can only put color down where color is already on that layer. With the clipping mask, you can put the new marks down on a new layer, but it will only show up where there is color down on the layer underneath it. And I'm going to rename this layer, and I'm going to call it, delete that out, I'm going to call it Lantern Shading. Okay. So making sure I'm on the lantern shading layer, I'm going to tap out of that. I'm going to go back to my brush library, go back to airbrushing, make sure I've got that medium brush, and I'm going to go into my color palette, and I'm going to pick a color to do the same thing to the lanterns that we just did to the beams. So I'm going to pick a darker color. Looking at my reference photo, I want to pick kind of a reddish color. And I think I'm going to choose this red right here. I'm going to zoom in on my lantern and see what that looks like. I've got the opacity down a little bit, and my brush size is at, let's see, I have it at a 3%. My opacity is at a 70%. Okay, oops. So I'm going to go in here and just put some shading in. And now remember, so I'm going to show you how the clipping mask works. I can't put any color down over these areas. It only goes over what's on the layer underneath it, right? And tap with 2 fingers to get rid of that. And then I'm just going to put some more shading around here. See how it bled over? When I do that, it bled over into the yellow lantern. That's because they're on the same layer. So in that spot, I need to be a little bit more careful with my mark. But here's the thing with why you would want to use a clipping mask is, let me redo that. So I have this color down here and I don't want it there. So I can go up to the eraser, I can grab it, and I can erase, make that a little bigger. I can erase this color without affecting the lantern underneath it, right? But if I were to do that on my Alpha Lock layer, so I'm on my Alpha Lock layer, so now I can put, oops, I'm on the eraser. I'm on my Alpha Lock layer, and I've grabbed my paintbrush, so now I can put down some color on here. But, oh, I don't like that color, so I want to erase it. Well, if I do that, it erases everything. It doesn't go back to just the plank, it erases everything down to the background color. So I don't want that. So that's one of the benefits of using a clipping mask versus Alpha Lock, is that if you need to adjust any of your shading or any of your marks that you make on that separate layer, it's very easy to do so without affecting the layer underneath. Okay, so make sure that you're still on your lantern shading layer, and then we'll go back in and continue with our shading. My brush is too big. And I didn't get all of this erased. Okay. And then I'm not gonna put anything on the yellow lantern. I want to use different colors for that one. So I'm gonna go over to the other orange lanterns. and put some darks in on them. Oops. I'm going to use the snap to make this, make the lines on the lantern. And again, this doesn't have to be super precise. We're going to be blending these out as well. Okay, so now I want to go into my color picker and pick a color for my yellow lantern. So when I look at the reference photo, it looks like it's kind of an orangey color. So I'm going to choose that orange, I think. And I'm just going to do the same thing. Okay, and now I'm going to go in and I'm going to add some lights to my lanterns. So I'm going to pick a lighter orange than what I already have down on my, oops, made a mark there, on my lanterns. Zoom in a little, and I'm just going to add some light sections in here. And we're not worried about the glow part in the middle. Don't worry about that. We're going to do that separately, okay? So you're seeing a lot of yellow in here. Don't worry about the yellow yet. Okay, and then I want to do the same thing for the yellow lantern. Oopsie. Okay, so once you have your lanterns marked up, it should look something like this.